Hey everyone, how's it going? Welcome back to another Walking Dead video. So in this one here, I want to answer your guys' questions regarding the Walking Dead universe. I did notice that there was one question regarding Deadpool and Wolverine, so obviously spoilers for that movie. I hope you guys have watched the movie. If you haven't yet, definitely go and do so. Really incredible movie, honestly. I had so much fun watching that movie. But yeah, thank you guys so much for posting all of your questions and whatnot, and also all the, thank you for the kind words and whatnot, regarding my uncle and whatnot and his passing. It's been a lot, it's definitely been something that has been a really, crazy learning experience, but I don't know, I still think that I'm not really, I haven't processed all of it entirely. I've just been feeling a lot of different feelings that I've never really felt. You always sort of expect when something big like that happens that you're gonna feel this way, and sometimes you will feel that way, but sometimes it's so much worse, or you'll start to feel like this, and it's just, it's a process, but, I mostly just, I feel bad for his sons and whatnot, and again, all the kind words from you guys and whatnot definitely help, so thank you so much for all of that here. But let's get into the first question here. So Q&A, favorite cameo in Deadpool and Wolverine. So I'll just have to say my favorite cameo would probably have to be Gambit, which I really was not expecting, because I mean, first of all, Gambit is my favorite character of all time. My favorite, Marvel character. Well, actually, I would have to think about that, because of, all Marvel characters, I'm thinking about when I was a kid, I really liked Spider-Man, but I also really liked Gambit as well. He was always my favorite character, just sort of in general. I had the Marvel Legends toy, and so I've always been a big fan of the character, and I remember hearing that Channing Tatum was supposed to play Gambit in, this movie and all of that, and it's supposed to be, a solo movie on Gambit, and I was just like, I don't know how I feel about this. I really honestly wasn't the biggest fan of all of that, but then I was so wrong as soon as I saw the movie. Seeing Channing Tatum as Gambit, he became my new favorite character in the Marvel Cinematic Universe just in general. Honestly, he does that character so well. I really hope that wasn't the last time that we saw him, because that was really incredible. Q&A, if Dead City had to kill off either Maggie or Negan in season 2, who would you choose? I would have to choose Maggie, just because, I really love Negan as a character. He's been one of my favorite characters, just really, throughout the entire series. Well, in my top 5 for sure. For sure top 5, maybe top 3, but for sure top 5. And Maggie's never really been in my top 5, so I would have to say that if I had to kill off one of those two characters, I would choose Maggie. But yeah, I don't think they're going to be doing that at all. I think that those two characters are going to live at least until the final season. We'll see what happens around that point, right? Q&A, would you want the variant walkers to be a much bigger threat in later seasons of Daryl Dixon, season 3 and 4? I think it all depends on how they handle all of it. Again, you don't have to make it so that every season that we go forward, for Daryl Dixon, that it just gets worse and worse in terms of the variant walkers, right? Season 3, they're going to be extremely fast, really, really fast now. And then season 4, they're going to go Super Saiyan, right? You don't have to do anything like that. I more just want them to, yes, it's a really exciting element to the story, but maybe in those seasons have it where, variant walkers are everywhere now. It's not just where Madame Genet, has, I guess, some of the variant walkers. Maybe she lost control of them and they're just everywhere. And so maybe that's why they're forced to go to Spain, right? That makes the story way more interesting, because then that's terrifying, the fact that she couldn't control all of that. And I hope that that is a story in season 2, but we'll have to wait and see. Q&A, not a Walking Dead question, but will you cover the other Game of Thrones spinoffs they made, such as Night of the Seven Kingdoms, Aegon's Quest, etc.? Yes, I definitely will. Every single series that does come out, I will cover. I know with House of the Dragon, I didn't do as many videos as I really wanted to. With Game of Thrones, I did a lot. I did a lot more videos than what I did for House of the Dragon. I pretty much did videos every single day. The same amount I cover The Walking Dead, that's how much I used to cover Game of Thrones when it was on. I would just cover it nonstop and wouldn't post a Walking Dead video for the entirety of the 2-3 months Game of Thrones was on. It was just a lot, but I think it's just because House of the Dragon, I haven't been the most interested in overall. It's been all right, but this season for sure, it's just, I don't know, there's something missing for sure. I think Damon spending all the time that he did in Harrenhal was a part to it. I think the way that they're structuring a lot of the story and stuff, I'm just not the biggest fan of. So in terms of the other spinoffs though, obviously I will cover it a lot, and if I'm really, really liking the show, then just expect a lot more videos from me, right? Which is kind of funny, because I feel like one thing that I could post a lot of videos on, because a lot of people seem to do that a lot, which is just videos on why I don't like House of the Dragons and whatnot, right? Like, people seem to really like posting a lot of those type of videos. For me, I think I have to get very frustrated to even like post a video like that. So I don't know if I'll ever do that, but yeah. So also with House of the Dragons ending with season 4, is that enough to cover the rest of the Dance of Dragons with all the events they need to cover, like God's Eye, the Gullet, Fall of King's Landing, and so on? Love all your videos. Thank you so much. So on that last part, I think they have enough for sure. I think it's going to make these last 2 seasons really, really incredible, because I think the Fall of King's Landing, you know, the Gullet and all of that will happen in season 3 pretty early on. I imagine like before the halfway point of the season is probably where a lot of that's going to play out. And then I think the ending of the season is going to be most likely the Battle Above God's Eye, or that's going to be like early season 4. There is a lot of stuff that happens afterwards, though. Like, there's actually quite a bit of stuff. Like, there's what happens with all the dragons and all of that, and then, you know, what happens, I guess, to the ending of everything here. So when I look at it like that, I'm like, well, you know, that's going to be towards the ending of season 4. And again, it's going to make a really entertaining season 3 and 4. But this is also why I think that season 2 was very like poorly paced, because they really could have added, you know, the Fall of King's Landing in the finale of season 2. It would have made it way more, I guess, just exciting to watch overall. But it is what it is, right? Q&A. Do you think they could introduce Jeffrey Grimes in season 2? Maybe not by showing his character, but by hearing the Grimes name, like you mentioned in a previous video, and that's why they go to Spain. Yeah, when I mentioned that idea, I sort of thought about it just kind of randomly, just off the top of my head, and I was like, oh wait, I really like that idea. Like, the idea that Daryl and Carol hear of a Grimes, right? Like, obviously they don't know who, but they hear of a Grimes. This would work if Carol doesn't know that Rick made it back, though. So, you know, that storyline would have to be that Carol doesn't know that Rick made it back. So if that does happen, then yeah, obviously Carol wouldn't know. And so if both of them found out that there was a Grimes out here, maybe they're all wondering, oh, is this where Rick went, right? And so eventually they find Jeffrey Grimes in that way. And so in that way, yeah, I could totally see season 2 introducing the character in that sense. Maybe it wouldn't be the character necessarily, but it would just be that storyline, I guess, just sort of getting into that a little bit, right? Q&A. Do you think the storyline could change with Jeffrey Grimes being a villain in Daryl Dixon season 3 when they go to Spain, kind of like when Dante was a villain in The Whisperers? I think that would be kind of cool, like just do a twist on it like that. I think you couldn't make him the villain for like the entirety of that story, though, because that would just sort of be sad, I feel like, if Rick and Jeffrey ever reunited in the future, right? Like, I don't think you could ever really do that. I think with Dante, like, Dante's character in the comics is very interesting because he was very different in who he was on the show. Like, in the comics, he was actually with Maggie, but on the show, he was literally just a side character and had no relation to really any other characters at all, right? He was just a whisperer. So I think they could do something like that, but I don't think it would ever be as like extreme of a change like they made with Dante, right? Q&A, what is your big picture view of the future Walking Dead story? Right now, our characters are obviously scattered, even internationally, but I feel there needs to be a large-scale threat once again in America to justify another massive storyline with actors coming back to reprise their roles. The only way I can see this happening is through a takeover of the now peaceful CRM, either by the Dama or Madame Janae's forces being pushed out of France and following Daryl and co to America. I feel like places like New Babylon or the Bricks would serve as staging posts for a larger war involving our survivors. So in terms of that, I will say the Bricks is more of a small community equivalent to like the Hilltop or Alexandria. New Babylon, though, I believe is much bigger than the Bricks. Like, we don't know a lot about New Babylon yet, but New Babylon is supposed to be as big as, I mean, I could see them being as big as the CRM, right? Or the Commonwealth. Like, obviously, they won't have as many forces and, like, the same military as the CRM. But in terms of having a lot of people, like, I could easily see them having 50,000 people because they have a lot of law, a lot of rules that everyone has to follow, and it's a really big place. So I could see them being as big as the Commonwealth for sure, because they're like 50,000 people. But in terms of, you know, your question regarding, you know, the big picture view that I have of The Walking Dead, I do understand that a lot of people want that sort of like big threat to come back into the story, and I guess I am also kind of there as well. I do feel like they do need to introduce something like that just in general for The Walking Dead, not necessarily for an excuse to reunite everyone, because I think you want to reunite everybody because you just want to reunite everybody, right? But in terms of like a bigger villain and all of that, yeah, like people have been wanting, I think that's a disappointment with the CRM, is that people have been wanting to see where this is going to go for a while, right? Like people have been waiting for this big reveal for a really long time because they've been teasing the CRM really since season 7. Like there's so many mysteries there, and then it just ended in the way it did. The one thing that I will say is that, you know, I don't know if Gimple and like AMC and others realized how much fans really like the CRM and some of the bigger world stuff. I feel like a lot of what they did in terms of that story was just more of, you know, if you really look at it, like they really focused on Rick and Michonne, which obviously were such a big part to all of it. It's why a lot of us watched, right? But it was because of the CRM stuff as well. And I watched a lot of reviews of people talking about it. Like a lot of people were like, whoa, they're really building up to this, and this thing might connect here and here, and it might mean all these things. And then you watch the show and like nothing happens. It doesn't connect to anything. And you can't help but feel like that was the biggest mistake in the world. And again, I don't think they really realized like what ending that storyline did, right? So that's why I think that they didn't really necessarily end the storyline, and I could see where they're going to make some changes here and there, right? Like I think obviously Major General Beale is gone, but he doesn't have to be the big villain. Like a lot of us, I think, thought of him as like the big villain because obviously he was like, you know, he was the villain of everything here, right? But I think they could easily come up with a newer villain, maybe somebody that was more in charge than he was, right? And I could see how, like, maybe not necessarily making the CRM villains, but there was the Triple P card that still hasn't been explained. There's quite a bit of stuff, you know, they even had to mention in the finale that there was Beale's spies out there in the world, right? And so to me, when I look at all that feels like dialogue that was purposely put there, right? For all the writers and whatnot to be like, you know what, we're not ending all this like this, like there's still going to be more. We're just ending this one thing, that there's still going to be a lot more here. They definitely have to work up to something else, because I do see a lot of fans just getting very upset, you know, with The Walking Dead in general if they don't build an overall arc, because that's why people watch these shows, right? Like everyone likes all the shows connecting. They love crossovers and all of that. And I just feel like, I don't know what happened with The Ones Who Live, if it was more Andrew Lincoln and Denai Guerrera that really didn't want to like do so many of the crossovers and stuff for that show. And if they were the ones that were like, no, we have to end the CRM arc or maybe kill off Major General Beale. But it seems like something happened for sure. But like, again, there's so many characters out there and you just have to focus on what Gimple says. You know, he says that there's so many more Walking Dead stories to tell. There's a lot of exciting stuff coming up. And I just think that right now we're in a place where it's like, well, what? Like, what is coming up next? I think fans want to get excited about something, but there's just nothing to be excited about. So I'm just really looking forward for Daryl Dixon, because I feel like that show, I think fans want to get excited about something, but it's sort of hard to get excited about anything, right? Like, obviously we're excited for the spin-off shows and we'll watch and whatnot, but in order to be excited about, you know, everything being connected, that's sort of that's why Marvel's exciting. Like, that's the thing. Like, does The Walking Dead really want to go down the route that Marvel's been down the last couple of years, right? Like, the last couple of years for Marvel just have not been good. And The Walking Dead has been doing really amazing the last couple of years, you know, in terms of all the spin-offs and all that coming out, and some of the characters and some of the storylines and all that, you know, the crossovers, just like all of it. The excitement there for The Walking Dead was really big for a while, and I would say that it wasn't necessarily because of Rick, because Rick is obviously at some point going to come back at some point in the future, but it seems like fans right now are still disappointed in, again, the CRM arc. So I think that's what they need to address in the next, I don't know when, like really honestly anytime soon. Like, I'm surprised honestly that AMC hasn't greenlit another spinoff of any kind, like just something like an original series or something else that could do other world building, because fans just want that excitement that's there, right? And so I think that's sort of what's missing. So I do understand what you were saying in terms of like the big picture view of The Walking Dead. I think things are just in a really weird place right now, but I think after we watch Daryl Dixon season 2 and whatnot, there's going to be a lot more, we'll know a lot more of where they're going and sort of what the bigger world stuff is at some point as they build towards that endgame spinoff, because obviously that is something that they are building to. It's just that they have to introduce that threat or what that villain's going to be, or like, you know, tease the future storyline of that, right? So yeah, we'll have to wait and see, but I'm going to leave it here. Definitely post our thoughts down below. Hope you guys all enjoyed the video, and I'll see you guys in the next one.